As children, we are taught to say I'm sorry when we do something wrong. And we are also taught that the response to I'm sorry is, that's okay. But what if it's not okay? What about the times someone really hurts us and it's not okay? And what if it never will be okay? What if that same person keeps hurting us again and again? What if it seems like something small to an adult, but is huge to a first grader, like getting cut off in line on the way to recess? What do we do? How do we forgive? Should we forgive? When do we forgive? Do we forgive but say I'll never forget? Is it true that forgiveness is always for the person offering it and rarely for the person receiving it? Or is it true that forgiveness helps us move forward and see the good in others? Some of you may know that Dan and I lost 4 children to miscarriage. When these first happened, we heard all sorts of words intending to bring us comfort. Words like, that's okay, there's a reason for this, or it's all part of his plan. And I remember telling Dan that if I heard that one more time, I was going to smack the person who said it. I was so hurt and so angry, and those words did anything but bring me comfort. All I could think of was, what reason was there? What reason was there to take those children from us? We were good parents. We were already providing a loving home to Truman. What good reason was there to put us through that? Not once, not twice, but 4 times. Those children were all wanted and loved. They all had names. I had spent weeks imagining what their lives were going to be like, what they were going to look like, what traits they would inherit from me and which from Dan. How Truman was going to be the best big brother in the world. And even after the first miscarriage, I couldn't help but wonder. We had already lost one. We were in the clear. Who would do that to us again? But it happened again, and again, and again. And even after the 3rd loss, when I should have known better by then, I still named that baby and planned his future. I remember thinking that if I had someone to be mad at, someone that I could concentrate my pain and anger on, it would be easier. But I didn't. I had a pain and anger that wasn't the result of a person. Not me, not Dan, not our doctors. Although for a time Dan was angry with our doctors. Not with the miscarriages themselves, but they couldn't tell us why it kept happening. And they kept filling us with hope that it wouldn't happen again. When we knew better, we knew based on Dr. Google that because we had lost so many, we had a 25% chance of carrying another baby to term. Noah and Patrick are that 25%. We never did get an answer, but we did get a Noah and a Patrick. Dan finds comfort now in the thought that if it hadn't been for those miscarriages, we wouldn't have Noah or Patrick. We would have had another child or 2, but they would not have been our redheads, with their personalities and their smiles and their fire, and the way they love each other and adore Truman. With everything they have taught us and every hug they have given us, they have helped to fill the void that the miscarriages left behind. When all these are going on, I met with my minister and told her how much easier I thought it would be if I could only let go and let God. If I could have a faith that there was a plan I could trust and not question. But I couldn't, and I still can't. I admire people who can do that, people who have that kind of faith. A friend of mine lost her son, and although difficult at first, she did forgive the person that was responsible for her son's death by leaning on her faith. Although initially she wanted this woman to burn in hell for taking her son away from her, The guilt of wishing that upon another person, no matter how much she thought she deserved it, was too much. My friend also had a faith that God had taken her son home, and that he would be waiting there for her when it was her time to go to God. I only forgave because the logical part of me knew that holding on to the pain and the anger was only hurting me. And no matter how angry and how hurt I was, it wasn't going to bring my babies back. I had to let go and move on. I had to let go for myself and for Dan and for Truman. I had to let go to be a wife and a mother. These examples of forgiveness are bigger and more complex examples. But what about forgiving after an argument? Or if someone cuts you off on the highway? Or if someone shares your secret? What is forgiveness anyway? You have just been unjustly hurt by someone, and yet you struggle to give up the resentment, which you're entitled to feel, to strive to offer them love and compassion, knowing that yours is an act of love and not necessarily deserved by the person. Forgiveness has 3 paradoxes embedded in it. First, the rest of the world seems to encourage anger. Don't let them get away with that. Second, a forgiver seems to be doing all of the giving, and the offender all of the taking. Why give kindness? Is it not the offender's turn to give, not the other way around? You were just hurt. Why should you be the one offering kindness? Shouldn't you just be allowed to sit there and be angry until the offender comes to you and says, "I'm sorry"? Third, a forgiver who reaches out to the offender with concern and care often finds that they are the one who is emotionally healed. When I first introduced forgiveness to the kids a few weeks ago, they all did agree that it felt really good to say and hear "I'm sorry." There was even a set of twins that said they enjoyed saying "I'm sorry" and hearing it so much that that was the only reason why they argued all the time. Their mom and I tried to explain to them that they could say "I'm sorry" without the arguing and still feel really good. They were skeptical, but we're going to work with them on it. Forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. When a person forgives, they are offering an end to the resentment. When 2 or more people reconcile, they come together in mutual trust. To reconcile is to trust the person again. In contrast, forgiveness is to offer love, but to not necessarily trust the person again. One can forgive and then not reconcile if the other person continues with his or her hurtful ways. When teaching forgiveness to our children or to ourselves, it is important to remember that forgiveness is the choice of the forgiver. If you or your child don't want to forgive at first, they might still come around in the end, but it's their choice. To help us, and especially our children, understand forgiveness, it helps to look at forgiveness as having ingredients. Inherent worth. A person is a person no matter what he or she has done. This goes with the idea that we hate the sin, but not the sinner. As children begin to see beyond what the person has done and see what they are really like on the inside, they will be laying an important foundation toward forgiving. If they can remember that their brother, their sister, their mom, dad, teacher, or friends are really good on the inside, even though they made them mad, it'll help them to forgive. Moral love. When we morally love someone, we love them unconditionally, despite their flaws. Certainly someone who morally loves can ask fairness of them. At the same time, someone who morally loves has the other person's best interests at heart. This is like the covenant that we as staff have here. We assume the best intentions of each other. If something can be said, and it can be taken in 1 or 2 ways, always assume that it was said in the best possible way. The other night at dinner, Noah wasn't feeling very well, and Patrick kept offering him drinks and vegetables and desserts. And Noah was starting to get really annoyed by all of this. And Dan and I tried to explain that Patrick was doing what he thought was best. He had Noah's best interests at heart, even if it was annoying the heck out of him. Moral love is not selfish or self-centered. It underlies true forgiveness. Kindness. When people are kind, they tend to be warm-hearted, concerned about the other person. People who practice being kind are laying the foundation toward forgiveness. People talk about the change of heart that occurs when someone forgives. The heart of stone becomes a softened heart. Respect. When someone shows respect, he or she is highly regarding the other person. Some people think that respect must be earned, but following the philosopher Immanuel Kant, people possess intrinsic value to such a degree that we should respect all persons. We respect not because of what someone has done, but because of who they are. And finally, generosity. To be generous is to give abundantly. If children can learn to be generous, they will be in a better position to understand what it means to give the gift of forgiveness to someone who has hurt them. Forgiveness encompasses more than the practice of inherent worth and the exercise of virtues of moral love, kindness, and generosity. As children, they realize that they can generalize their forgiveness of a brother to others, such as a teacher or a friend. As children grow into adolescence, they will realize that forgiveness is an important part of their lives. They make forgiveness one of the moral principles by which they live. As we grow into adulthood, we practice forgiveness so consistently that it has become a part of who we are. To forgive becomes natural and constant with our identity. Adults who may be struggling with forgiveness may need to go back to the beginning and reflect on the ingredients and learn what they didn't learn when they were children. And for those of us with young children, now is the time to teach forgiveness. It is a process, not an expectation. It is a process that I am still working on. I have never truly forgiven the universe for taking my babies away. The pain is still there. It's not my first thought every day, but it's still there. The more I learn about forgiveness, the easier it has become. And just like you who have been through the process of forgiveness, there were times when I'm sure it was easy, times when it wasn't so much, and then times where you still probably have not forgiven. It is a process, not an expectation. As I read and researched for this sermon, I gained a new perspective on forgiveness, a new understanding of the root of forgiveness, and what building blocks I need to start putting in place so forgiveness can become a natural part of my boys' lives. It is a process, not an expectation.